Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and the trumpets of war continue. There is no ceasefire in Gaza right now or throughout Palestine. As we see, horrific stories continue to hit headlines. Middle East Eye reports West Bank, Israeli forces execute two Palestinians at point blank range. Video footage shows men in Jenin unarmed and complying before soldiers open fire. And of course, as per usual, you could expect Israel to say, oh, but they were Hamas. Well, they could call anyone Hamas. They've called 3-year-olds Hamas. I am just absolutely sick of the excuses surrounding these absolute crimes against humanity. As Palestinian photojournalist among 5 people killed by Israeli forces in Gaza on Tuesday, and we're seeing continued attacks, constant attacks throughout Gaza, as Gaza's economy was erased in worst collapse ever recorded, the United Nations report claims. Now, a lot of other things are happening as Netanyahu says there will never be a Palestinian state. There's a lot of stories coming out right now, and it's not just about Israel and Palestine. It's also about Israel and Lebanon, as we see further attacks continue in Syria and Lebanon, despite, again, more ceasefires. And of course, insane stuff happening between Russia, Ukraine right now, and the United States, and of course, NATO, where Putin is basically saying he's ready to fight. Not to mention Venezuela. So we're going to get into this and more today, my friends. Before we do, I urge you guys to go and check those links below for ways you can, of course, benefit yourself in the face of, what we see right now with 5G, radio towers, et cetera, cell phones in your pocket. We're surrounded by bad frequencies. I urge people to go and check out Wave Watch, our link in the description for Wave Watch 2.2. You could pre-order it now. It's a good time coming up on Christmas. 1,250 frequencies. If you use code WAM, W-A-M, you'll save over $100 on your order. It's endorsed by people like Dr. Brian Artis. There's no Wi-Fi required, no apps required. This is a really cool thing to go and check out. Helps with energy detox, of course, sleep, and many other things. So I urge people to go and check that out below. And also help support us if you can. We need your help now more than ever. GoGetFunding.com, Patreon, Subscribe Star. Thank you to those who've donated in the past and continue to pledge as well. We could not survive without you. So again, it's really appreciated. There's a Bitcoin address you could scan here or check in the description. And you could also check out our Teespring store with a bunch of merchandise. Make sure to go subscribe on Rumble and BitChute at World Alternative Media as well. Hit that like button, share on social media, and hit the notification bell if you have not yet already. And of course, subscribe. Let's get into this. So MiddleEastEye.net reports West Bank, Israeli forces execute 2 Palestinians at point blank range. This is another example of these crimes against humanity. And they will say, oh, well, Hamas has done some horrible things. Hamas was armed and funded by Israel in the first place and continue to be propped up. Again, we've seen the same thing with Al-Qaeda, Mujahideen, Taliban, Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS. Again, we see this across the board. They create problem. They get a reaction. They come in as a solution. Israeli forces executed 2 unarmed Palestinians at point blank range after they surrendered in the occupied West Bank city of Jenin on Thursday. The killings were captured on video, which showed the 2 men emerging from a building with their arms raised and their shirts lifted, clearly indicating they were unarmed and posed no threat to the soldiers. The troops then shoot them dead. The Palestinian Health Ministry identified the victims as El Montasir Billah Mahmoud Qasim Abdullah, 26, and Yusuf Ali Yusuf Asa, 37. They were shot in the Abu Dair neighborhood of Jenin. Israeli forces withheld their bodies after the killings. Now, of course, they will always say, again, oh, well, these guys are just Hamas fighters with no evidence of it. And we saw the similar things coming up in the news before the so-called ceasefire, which is totally fake, because they continue to bomb. It's kind of hard to call that a ceasefire. I mean, the Israeli government claims that they have a ceasefire with Lebanon, yet continue to hit them and say that they're going to increase bombings by 10 times in the near future. They say that doesn't go against their ceasefire. How does that not go against your ceasefire? You're seizing fire. Anyway, I remember before the so-called ceasefire with Gaza, Israeli forces claimed that they killed a group of Hamas terrorists who approached them and approached them with guns, and they had no identifiable information on them showing that they were aid workers. Well, then people found a landfill where there was a mass grave, which the Israelis buried all these people, and someone had a cell phone on them. So they looked at the video on the cell phone. I reported on it at the time, where it showed clearly they were marked with vests. They were in ambulances with flashing lights that said aid and medical care on them. And the Israeli forces, IDF, just opened fire on them and killed them, and then lied about what they were and said that they had no evidence that they were, aid workers. They said, oh, there was no lights. They had guns pulled on them and all that. And the video shows the exact opposite: flashing lights, very obvious lit up vehicles. But of course, if people didn't find that mass grave and find that cell phone video, they would continue to say, oh, look, we had all justification. They'll say whatever they need. Oh, that child in that playground that we blew up, there might have been a tunnel underneath them with Hamas in it. You know, the tunnels, which, by the way, the Israeli government built in that region in the first place. Again, it's a Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, repeat. And then the same old thing about we're protecting the region. What would you do if it was just a bunch of radical Islamists in the region and no Israel? Well, first of all, those radical Islamists wouldn't be there in the first place without Israel. They armed and funded the Wahhabist tribal movements in the region. Before that, Afghanistan had women driving cars in short skirts and reading books and going on the beach in bikinis. Before the Mossad, the MI6, and of course the CIA got involved in that region and totally transformed it so that they can then justify, look at the extremism, we need to come in there and save the day. This isn't me saying, hey, radical Islam's good, because obviously it isn't. And nor is a mass migration, which, by the way, the Israeli government brags that they're sending all these migrants to the West. What do you think happens when you cause a problem in these countries, blow them up and kill men, women, and children, and cause a massive refugee crisis? So, again, the excuses around these issues are completely ridiculous. And again, also, I should mention that it isn't strange to most people that ISIS basically never attacks Israel when it's right there, but they attack churches in the Middle East, which are generally defended by most of the Islamic presence there. And then when they do attack Israel, they apologize, saying it was an accident, and say, oh, we're sorry, we did not mean to hit you. We want to put out an apology towards you. And you don't find it weird that Israel and the U.S. government support people like Jolani, who are literally Al-Qaeda, HTS, formerly Al-Nusra Front, and were clearly supported in their takeover of Syria, as it completely echoes a 1980s CIA document called Bring Arms to Bear in Syria, which details overthrowing Assad Sr. at the time and utilizing militias from the Turkish border, Lebanese border, and the Iraqi border to infiltrate the country without a shot being fired, take over the place, and then obviously overthrow Assad, and then target Sunnis and target Alawites and Christians. It's exactly what we've seen happen since January of this year, 2025. And 1 year ago today, we were starting to see that echo start to build up. And those are clearly Israeli insurgents. And again, Israel, like this HES group, praises Israel, says they're anti-Palestinian. Could it be more obvious that these guys are intelligence apparati, meeting in the White House, shaking hands with Trump, trying on different colognes with Trump? Trump is doing the exact same damn thing that Obama did, that Biden did, that Bush did. How do people not see that? I just recently did my video on Venezuela. I'll get into that for a short period later on in the video. But again, how can people not see this? It's just mind-blowing. Palestinian photojournalist among 5 people killed by Israeli forces in Gaza on Tuesday. It continues, despite the so-called ceasefire, Gaza's economy erased in worst collapse ever recorded, UN report finds. Gaza's economy has suffered the most severe collapse ever recorded. Its GDP has fallen by 83%, erasing 69 years of progress. Unemployment has skyrocketed to over 80% with universal poverty. The cost to rebuild is estimated at $70 billion, a multi-decade task. All schools and universities are destroyed, harming future generations. But Israel says, hey, they just built a new hospital in Gaza. What are you talking about? Where's the evidence that Gaza's destroyed? Because they rebuilt one hospital. That's the pretext of that, despite the entire region being absolutely devastated and turned to rubble. But look on the bright side. Yeah, I'm not seeing a bright side here. As Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says, there will never be a Palestinian state. Currently, he's begging Trump for a pardon, and I think the begging is fake. I think it's just a veneer because I don't think he needs to beg anyone to push for a pardon like Trump, because he literally owns Trump through the Epstein files and like many other politicians, left or right in the U.S. Pretty clear. Gave him a golden beeper. And we have a study that reveals Gaza death toll likely exceeds 100,000 as life expectancy plummets under Israeli assault. It's absolutely awful. A Max Planck Institute study estimates over 100,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza since October 7th, 2023, far exceeding official numbers. Life expectancy plummeted by 44% to 47%, with women now at 46 years and men at 36, marking the worst collapse in modern conflict history. And by the way, I think that's worse than World War I, by the way. But October 7th, obvious inside job. The Hannibal directive, pretty clear. The warnings that they had with like Operation Jericho Wall, which they knew about the exact number of people. By the way, there's multiple projects and exercises where the Israeli government knew down to the detail of how many people would be kidnapped, how many hostages there would be, exactly where it would happen, where they moved this music festival to the border at the last moment, had that multi-hour stand-down order. And by the way, it turns out because of the Hannibal directive, they say around 72% of killings of Israelis were by the IDF in helicopters, from helicopters. It's so easy. I mean, they don't like their people. They've killed their people many times. There's massive protests that are happening regularly in the streets of Tel Aviv against the government. Very little news coverage. Just wanted to throw that in there. Okay. This is from the cradle.co. U.S. outlines plan for divided Gaza under Israeli foreign troop control. Again, this is still an annex. Trump said we're not going to see an annex. This is basically an annex. It's occupation. The proposal limits reconstruction to Israel-controlled sectors, while millions of Palestinians remain trapped in Gaza's devastated coastal strip. And now they're saying in the U.S. that the biggest issue today is anti-Semitism. Well, they're creating it with this. But by the way, I mean, there's more Semites that aren't Jewish in that region than are. I've lived in the region. I don't care what anyone says. I've seen it myself. There's Jewish synagogues in Egypt. I mean, there used to be a lot more people, and certainly people have issues with them. But when you ask most people, they're like, yeah, I don't hate other people. I don't agree with their religion, but I don't hate other people. I lived 3 doors down from like the main synagogue in Egypt. I'm not saying that there's a lot of people there that are Jewish anymore, but it's true. I was there. I saw it, and there's churches everywhere. And of course, they will say, well, you know, we're trying to stop anti-Semitism in the United States because radical Islam is super anti-Semitic, and these left-wingers are super anti-Semitic, and these new right-wingers that follow people like Nick Fuentes are super anti-Semitic. Okay, whatever. I've already said I don't care if you want to call me anti-Semitic, go ahead. I really don't care anymore. Call me it. I don't care. Call me a transphobe too. I don't care. Just because I don't want to give children gender reaffirming drugs. Again, words, if you meaninglessly use words no longer have meaning. So go for it. Have fun. Break a leg. But okay, so they're bringing all these rules now in the U.S. where just like the left pushed all these anti-free speech laws, the right is doing it as well with the anti-Semitism, the anti-Semitism speech, whatever that means, including criticizing Israel, where people are losing their legal visas for criticizing the Israeli government in the United States and kicked out of the country and, of course, arrested. And they're trying to make it a hate crime where you could actually spend multiple years in prison for talking negatively about Israel. And people like Randy Fine have been pushing this absolutely insane bullshit. I believe he's in Florida, representative, absolute scumbag. And again, this is just where they're trying to bring us, trying to bring us into a technocratic world order. They just need to have the right excuse. They need the chaos. They need the confusion. They need the fear. They need the back and forth divide, order out of chaos. And they're succeeding right now. So right now they're also getting Israel to be involved directly in the immigration system in the U.S., deciding who can or cannot stay in the U.S. Why is the Israeli government in charge of that? U.S. envoy warns Iraq of imminent Israeli war in Lebanon. Envoy Tom Barak is said to have told Iraq's premier that Israel will attack his country if Iraqi resistance factions jump in to aid Hezbollah. Just another mirror of the past, my friends. They killed millions of people in Iraq. And it was Israel that promoted the war in Iraq in the first place, with Benjamin Netanyahu speaking in front of Congress saying there's weapons of mass destruction, which people just believed. Again, there's a really good book that I have behind me called Deadly Betrayal by Dennis Fritz, which exposes that lobbying. Now they say Iran has weapons of mass destruction, talking about a ceasefire that will not hold because it never existed. Israeli forces disguised as medics execute Palestinians in Jenin hospital raid. We're hearing so many awful stories like this. Footage shows IDF soldiers dressed as doctors, nurses, and patients infiltrating Elbian Sina. I think it's Ibn Sina Hospital in Jenin, executing 2 Palestinians in cold blood, a blatant violation of Geneva Conventions protecting medical facilities. Are they going to say, oh, we accidentally dressed up as doctors and as we executed innocent people because they were totally Hamas, or Hamas was hiding behind them? I wouldn't doubt it. Absolutely sick display of, again, people that say that they're just defending themselves, and also saying that they have the moral side of this equation, and also claim that there's a ceasefire. There's no ceasefire, my friends. It's all fake. They continue to mass murder people, both in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza. And they are licking their lips for Iran and, of course, Venezuela right now, because they're claiming Hezbollah soldiers are training in Venezuela. Totally insane. Days earlier, Israeli forces executed 2 unarmed, surrendering Palestinians at point-blank range, despite video evidence showing compliance, actions praised by Israeli officials as terrorists must die. Again, going back to this imagery. Absolutely insane. I'm so sick of hearing these stories. And again, Israeli forces conduct more raids in Syria, launch fresh drone strike on Beit Jin. Again, they overthrow the Syrian government and continue to do strikes, saying that they had nothing to do with the revolution, which is clear that they did. Again, why are radical Islamists getting praise from Trump suddenly, just like drug lords are being freed while they're claiming we were going to war to stop drug lords and we're going to stop terrorism and all this kind of stuff, all these excuses, as they bomb Syria and the Syrian resistance bows to Israel. Exclusive is Israel plans to bomb Lebanon at maybe 10 times intensity while peace deal of the century crumbles. New war coming. There's no peace deal. It's all bullshit. It's about the Greater Israel Project. American sympathy for Israel hits historic low amid Gaza conflict, polls show. Well, it's good to hear that people have humanity left in their heart, empathy left in their hearts. You don't have to be left or right or a part of that bullshit Pepsi Coke paradigm to see children dying and say, hey, that's bad. Remember, I think her name was Miss Rachel, a children's performer, was attacked and called anti-Semite of the year for featuring a child who was maimed in Palestine and hugging her and playing music with her. Anti-Semite of the year. So saying maiming and murdering 4-year-old girls is bad is now anti-Semitic. Okay, let's all be anti-Semitic then. And I mean, the stories that are coming out that just prove the blackmail operation in effect, it's just amazing. I've talked about this before, but leaked emails reveal Epstein's role as middleman in Israeli cyber weapons funding effort. This also includes Ehud Barak and Ariane de Rothschild's bank. I mean, could you be more clearly Mossad? And remember what like Virginia Giuffre said before she died, saying that, and in her new book, which was released after her death, saying that a very famous prime minister raped and brutally assaulted her, which Epstein seemed afraid of the man and did what he was told by him. I bet you that it actually originally said Ehud Barak before she died, and they changed it. And of course, like she's come out against Ehud Barak multiple times in other interviews, so it's quite clear we know who she's talking about. But why is he working with the Rothschild banks, Ariane Rothschild, and the Israeli government and Ehud Barak on Israeli cyber weapons funding? If you can't see it, I don't think you ever will. Information Liberation says Israel seeks 20-year military aid deal with U.S. as American support for Jewish state collapses. Absolutely insane, the amount of funding while people are dying of hunger on the streets. And this is correlating with what we're seeing in Russia, too. President Putin says Russia is ready to fight if Europe wants a war. President Putin says Europe sabotaged a peace deal intentionally and warns if Europe wants a war with us and starts it, a situation may quickly arise where there is no one left for us to negotiate with. And this is happening as we see NATO's Ruta say NATO to spend over $1 billion per month in 2026 to supply weapons to Ukraine for its war with Russia. 2026, my friends, hang on to your seats. This isn't about fear mongering. We got to face realities here. This is reality. We can't close our eyes to it. It's ugly. This is happening as Trump is saying that he wants to strike cartels in any country suspected of drug trafficking, saying he's going to do ground strikes in Venezuela right away, as I reported recently, as well as in Mexico and Colombia and Honduras, because he's made it clear these ground strikes will happen wherever the cartel operates. This is not looking good, my friends. The peace president who wants a Nobel Peace Prize is arming Ukraine, is bombing Iran after giving Hellfire missiles to Israel to preemptively bomb Iran, and it'll continue, is helping annex the West Bank, is supporting Israel in attacking Lebanon and trying to continue the coup in Syria, is getting involved in wars in Nigeria, no matter the fact that, of course, the Nigerian government is committing genocide against Christians. There's no doubt about that. But getting involved in other countries, the military-industrial complex is all part of the facade. Getting involved with Pakistan and India, getting involved with China and Taiwan, calling for potential conflict with Canada, and you be using force against Canada, bombing Venezuela, and causing strife with Colombia, Honduras, and Mexico, where I live, by the way. I'm not happy about what I'm seeing here. This is insane. Bombing one of the most conservative, traditionally family-oriented Christian countries in the world. Yeah, that's what people voted for Trump. And don't bother with the Epstein files. Give $7 billion to Pfizer and promote reptile venom as a weight loss supplement with Ozempic. I mean, is this what you guys wanted? Is this called winning? Because I don't think it is. Bowing to Israel, banning so-called hate speech. When Charlie Kirk was murdered, Trump was in an interview when the reporter said, well, Charlie Kirk doesn't believe in hate speech. And he says, well, maybe he would now. No, he wouldn't. Hate speech is bullshit and always will be. It doesn't matter what you test with that. It always will be. And gun rights should always be secure. But of course, according to the Trump administration, with the recent moves towards banning certain kinds of guns, obviously that isn't as sacred as people claimed it would be. Warrantlessly arresting people, putting martial law in the streets to stop crime, which was created by the CIA in the first place. Again, problem, reaction, solution, repeat. Bring in AI to basically control all aspects of government and corporation and eventually people. Bring in Larry Fink of BlackRock and Palantir for massive databases on all Americans and AI drones and, of course, AI nuclear facilities and massive spending. Elon Musk with his X money, working side by side with Visa, as he wants to put chips in your brain attached to a Pentagon-funded mesh network, as they create a hive mind around us and utilize social credit, as they sign on to the United Nations Pact for the Future. 193 countries sign on to it, where they could shut down your bank account at any time. Shall I go on? Because I could for a long time. This is not winning. This isn't making America great again. This isn't any of the above. People will act, well, what about Hillary? Or what about Obama? Or what about Biden? What about Kamala? Fuck off with that. That's a whataboutism. All those people were bad. I called them all out. This is just the next step of the agenda. And if we look the other way, we will succumb to that agenda. So it's up to you as an individual. The basis of humanity is individualism because the state depends on the dependence of the masses. Tyranny comes under the guise of convenience. We as individuals, and I say we again as individuals, I don't like to use the word we to mean everybody because it's those of us that are paying attention that want to be an individual. That is a basis of freedom. That is a basis of humanity. It's up to us. We are responsible. Voting for someone isn't going to change anything. In fact, it's just going to perpetuate the system while sitting on our hands, waiting for the government to fix the problems of government. And of course, protesting, fine. We could get word out that way to some people that might not be on the same page, but it's most important that you start with yourself at home. And that's why I urge people, again, as always, to check those links below and get prepared today, because this is an ugly situation that's arising right now. I urge people to go and check firstnationalbulletin.com/schedule-consult/. It has to be that exact link, not a shortened version. It's in the description of our videos. I urge people to go and check that out on Rumble and BitChute at World Alternative Media. You can avoid the digital IDs, the CBDCs this way, the collapsing banks, the inflation rates. Going there, you could buy physical gold, silver, platinum, or palladium. Hold it in your hands. Put it in a vault. Put it in an IRA outside of the traditional IRA system and get prepared today. Schedule an appointment for a free consultation with Mark Gonzalez and a complimentary investors package you'll get with that as well. Make sure to see our videos with Mark on Rumble and BitChute at World Alternative Media or YouTube if you really want to go on there. And also let him know that you found him in the comments of the forum when you sign up. Let him know that you found him at World Alternative Media or WAM, WAM. Of course, we have things like heavensharvest.com, which I make like no money off of. I just want to make sure people go out and get this. Heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Use code WAM, WAM, and you'll get 5% off as well as free shipping on these items. It's so important that people get this and get prepared today. Again, this is a lifesaver, my friends. So please get prepared. Check this out below. Don't allow yourself to succumb to the digital system where you'll be dependent on food rations, obviously. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, check out our link for Wave Watch 2.2. Get the pre-order today at 1,250 plus frequencies. And again, helps with sleep, helps with immune system, helps with energy boosting, enhances cellular function, soothes your nerves. It's endorsed by people like Dr. Brian Ardis. You do not need Wi-Fi for this. You do not need an app for this. Again, use code WAM, WAM, and save over $100 on this order. And of course, we have vni.life/WAM, WAM, where you can get a bunch of super supplements today. And I really encourage people to go and check this out. This is amazing stuff, including things like Protovite. Again, use code WAM15, WAM15, and you'll save 15% on these items. 100 plus vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients, all in a bottle. Again, look at the before and after, the circulatory issues that people have. Of course, the issues with red blood cells not really flowing, reduced negative charge, and of course, white blood cells, of course, being essentially dormant and small. 5 minutes after taking it, you get a restored negative charge, red blood cells freely flowing, and of course, white blood cells 4 times their size. This is a 5-minute thing, my friends, and this is something that usually takes a month. So I urge people to go and check that out. That's Protovite. And again, over at vni.life/WAM, WAM. Links in the description. As we close this off, I appreciate any help we can get. GoGetFunding.com, Patreon, and Subscribestar. If you pledge $4.99 a month or more on Patreon or Subscribestar, you'll get exclusive content, including early access, as well as, of course, subscriber-only content. And we'd like to make sure to give you personalized video answers to any questions you might have. So make sure to send us questions if you're pledged on there. You could also pledge on X at World Alt Media for the same price. And of course, we have a PayPal address, ancientwonderstelevision@gmail.com. We have a Bitcoin address here that you could scan on the screen or check out in the description of our video. And we have a Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in, if you please, including privacy coins. We have our Teespring link in the description for merchandise. And you can find us, as always, on Telegram, Band.video, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. We're on Hive, Steemit, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson, and on the Bad Guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media, and all the major podcast platforms except for Spotify, where, of course, we're banned. Hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. And as always, my friends, live freely, live by example. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.